So this was our cutout creature. Remember, I've got all the component layers here, but I merged them before I trimmed the outer edges. So on all the component layers, I did all the internal blending, color correction, and edges. But then to clone stamp and to combine, all of that's on a new layer on top. Now the gray helps me see if there's any debris and helps me cut out the outer edge. Now that's good. I'm going to show you one last technique, which is really helpful. And it's something we're going to use for proving ground number 1. And it's called dodging and burning. Now, dodging and burning are these tools. Looks like a black lollipop. Dodging will brighten, burning will darken. What's so nice about it, they're darkroom photography tools, is they will directly change. There are tool adjustments, the lighting of the pixels wherever you use the tool. So I don't see a lot of need to brighten, maybe a little bit on maybe this wing. So I guess I'll start with the black lollipop, which is for dodging. I'm going to make, just like the eraser, just like the clone stamp, a nice big brush, 0% hardness. But instead of 100% opacity, they call it exposure. That's its strength. I want it less than 20 because these are really strong tools and they push everything really fast. And then I just brush over it. Now, that actually changed the pixels. So if I look in my history, before I used dodge, it looked like that. After I used dodge, it brightened up. And it's doing it just to the midtones, which is always where you want to start. And really, the main thing you want to do. So what I'm using is using dodge just to add a little bit of highlight on the top edge of my creature. Because his face is getting a lot of light, but that doesn't always come across in the rest of the textures. Like I can brighten up the top of the beak. So this is where you can actually create highlights and shadows a little bit. Now dodge, I said, is really effective, but you can't always tell what it's doing. So if I go back in my history, it did all of that. All right. Now the next tool is called burn, and it's right underneath dodge in the same drawer. And we use it the exact same way, except this is for shadows. So I use it less than 20%. Pretty big brush, 0% hardness. And where do I need shadows? I need shadows under this arm, in the midtones. And it directly darkens from existing pixels. So it really helps kind of change the direction of the light, helps everything match. I need some shadows underneath this jaw. And on this chicken arm, on the bottom side. It really only makes sense to do this once you've already cut out your creature. Otherwise, it can make cleaning the edges, both internal and external, kind of harder. Okay, the problem with it is, notice, especially on this white, it's kind of changing the color a little bit. It's turning those a little bit purple. That's because dodge and burn are changing the levels adjustment of the pixels that they find. And so if those pixels have color in them, like there's some purple or some green or whatever, then it's going to make it a little bit more saturated as you darken it. So there is another tool in that same drawer called the sponge tool. And this is not the same as hue saturation, but it's where you can affect the saturation with a tool. So the sponge tool you can set to be either desaturate, which is where I'll start, or saturate. That means to intensify or de-intensify the color. Again, I'm going to keep it at less than 20 because it's a very powerful tool. 0% hardness brush, really pretty big. And then where I think the color got a little out of control in my dodging and burning, I'm just going to desaturate it a little bit. Take that purple out from the feathers. Now, if I do it too much, everything will just go to grayscale, and that's not what I want. But maybe this fur is a little bit more colorful than I want as it transitions out of the white. So you can see how dodging and burning can be really helpful. If I want to saturate anything, this is a little bit trickier. Like if I want a little bit more intensity from the wings, I can hit where I want to saturate, or the toes, or the top of the head. Then I can go back to dodge and brighten up the fur here, all from the pixels, so that white transition feels a little bit more believable. Can you say it again, Randall? It needs to be a PNG. It cannot be a PSD. So I'm going to show you how we save so we can submit it. Because we have to make it an online file type for it to go onto Canvas. We want to save it as a PSD for ourselves. So I'm just going to desaturate some of the green down there using the sponge tool, set it to desaturate, and then I'm going to show you how we save it and turn it in. So these are tool adjustments. Direct adjustments are under image adjustment. That affects the whole layer. Tool adjustments are dodge, burn, and sponge. I'm actually going to dodge the webbing in between the feet because it's a little bright or a little dark. Up. And I'm doing the opposite of what I want. I accidentally chose burn. So good for history. So dodge it. Brighten those up just a little bit, just in the midtones. Just like using levels adjustments, it's safest to do it just on the midtones. And you see how that's bringing light to it. And then, because it brings a lot of color too, I might need to use the desaturating sponge. Okay, now I'm ready to turn it in. So first I hit Command S, I save it as a PSD. I make sure I know where it's saving. It's into my assignment 2 folder right there. Then I turn off this background. So I see the checkerboard. The gray helps me see I don't have any debris, so it's a clean cutout, head to toe. And then I can go File, Save a Copy out of Photoshop. This is just like Export As out of Photopea. And while it's a copy, I'm going to say Format PNG to the desktop. Say OK, then I can check my desktop. It takes a little bit to save it. Remember, this is high resolution. This is print quality. You have to turn it in as a PNG. That's one of the requirements. It's up on the whiteboard. And it's in the directions for the assignment. That is so when you open it, if you just test it on your Mac, you double click it, it will show up on a gray background. Shows it's a transparent background, right? Even though it's white here. So now if I go to Canvas, and I go to the assignment, and I go to where I've posted, and I click on the 3 dots and edit it to add my finished work. So remember, we don't want multiple posts from you. We just want one with all your requirements. I'm going to say required finished creature cutout saved as a PNG with no background. And now I post it. So I like to mark those from my desktop. Where is he? Thought I saved it and saw it, but I think I just, oh, there it is. I like to mark them as orange for my online file types. And then I can just drag and drop it into Canvas and then shrink it down to fit with the writing. So I don't need it to be so huge. So it looks like it has a white background, but it actually doesn't have any background, which is pretty important for how we're going to use it for our next project. So here we have the required sketch and then the required finished creature cutout. And those are the two requirements, head to toe. As long as you post something by the deadline, you can resubmit and improve it up until the end of the semester for a better grade. All right.